So we're going to talk today about whether social media is going to be just as important as your website. So if we move on to the next slide. So did you know that social media usage has increased by almost 100% in the last 5 years? That's nearly 1.5 billion new users now. You might ask the question, well, the world population is only 7.5 billion or thereabouts, so is that a fifth of the world's population? Now, this figure is probably based on the number of social media accounts, so one person might be using another 3 or 4 on top of that. Either way, it's a pretty big number, and it gives an indication of the power of social media compared to, well, if you think about 5 years ago, these 1.5 billion new users were not on there. So that is kind of the core of everything that we're going to be working to. So in this webinar today, we're going to cover, if we just move on to the next slide, we're going to cover our future predictions of how social media will change as a marketing tactic, why social media is crucial for business growth in 2021, each business-to-business social media platform and how it can be used, how to future-proof your digital marketing strategy, and useful tools you can use to strengthen your digital marketing strategy. So before I go into that, I'm going to give you a little bit of background about Expand. So if we move on to the next slide. Our studio is based in Saltaire in West Yorkshire. We're a full-service digital marketing agency, and I set the business up in 2007, so we've just celebrated 14 years in business. Some of the more recognisable names that we work with are Lindt Chocolate, or that we have worked with, are Lindt Chocolate, the Tetley Brewery, Argra chain of restaurants, and Her Majesty's Prison Service. Now, these are all recognisable names, very much in the B2C arena. Today, we're talking very much about B2B social media. That's a very big part of the type of audience that we service. So it's all about B2B. Now, a model that we've created is called Solar 7. And that is, there are 7 stages to achieving return on investment, ROI. So the model that you see here, if we were to, the process to get to ROI in its entirety is, I'll go through it step by step. Stage 1 is all about discovery. It's understanding where the business has been, where it is now, where it wants to go, what the objectives are, who the audience are, who the competition are, and really digging down deep into what they are. Stage 2 is getting the strategy right, and the strategy, the grey rings around the outer perimeter, represent that the strategy captures all activity that needs to take place, and the outcome from your strategy is a roadmap. It should be a plan of everything that needs to happen. So in September you need to do this, in October you need to do that, in November you need to do this, and that's all based on the objectives that are outlined in the discovery session. Stage 3 is at the heart of the model. So your brand and your message is at the heart of the model. Your brand is more than just your logo. It's all about the content that you're getting across and the kind of tone of voice and the way that you're speaking and how it makes people, the perception that people have of your brand. Stage 4 is your website, which is like the sun in your solar marketing. So all the information in your stage 3 from your brand and your message, that goes onto your website. And then stage 5 is all the planets that kind of drive traffic to your website. So that might be social media, getting to the top of Google, PR, email advertising. And the orange ring around each one of these is content. So content is key to everything, really, because it's at the heart of the model. So I'd say, for example, on your social media, you need to be putting the right kind of content together on a regular basis, because that's what's going to resonate with your target audience. Stage 6 is reviewing and measuring and testing what's working, doing more of what's working and less of what isn't. And ultimately, that's what gets you to stage 7, which is return on investment. So this model is something that we're going to use as a framework for what we're going to be talking about today. So moving on to the next slide, we're going to be talking about what our future predictions of social media are, and how it will change, and how as a marketing tactic, how we feel this should be used. So number 1, could social media sit at the heart of your marketing model? Now, if you think about the model that I just showed you, could social media be there to kind of replace whatever's going on in the middle? Now, I did a poll on LinkedIn a few weeks ago, and 62 people filled it in. I asked the question, you're looking for a B2B supplier Do you make an inquiry just from seeing their social media, or do you need to check their website too? So obviously 8%, you can see the results there, 8% said they would just check social media and they're happy to move on. 50% said they need to check their website, and 42% said both. So collectively 50% of people said that there's some kind of reference to social media in that way. It says 58% on there. That's obviously, it's 50%. 50% of people said that they need to actually check social media. So that gives a really strong indication that, you know, whether they're checking the website as well, social media is strong. It plays a very big part in what you need to be doing. So if we re-look at this, the Solar 7 model on the next slide, if you look in the center on stage 4, the wording previously was website. What we've done there is we've actually changed the wording to home. Now, imagine you're in a scenario. This actually came from a discussion that I had with Danny a few months ago when we were talking about Solar 7. And Danny said, I think social media should be at the center. And it really got us thinking. And I was like, no, it's website at the center. But when we think about the usage of social media as we move forward, imagine a social media platform actually becomes that central hub of everything. Now, it doesn't mean that websites are going to cease to be a thing, but the research that we just showed you, just from the 62 people that filled in the poll, websites are obviously important, but social media could actually be that central hub. As long as you've got your website, your brand and your messaging right, then obviously getting that through on your social media. People are making buying decisions, sometimes purely on social media. So if you think about it based on that, what we're not saying is that this moment in time in the B2B world, social media is going to take over websites. But there is evidence in kind of the smaller B2C arenas. If you think of kind of, you know, your smaller hairdressers and bakeries that don't really have the budget for a website, they run things from Instagram. And usually social media, kind of what we find is, bar LinkedIn, but LinkedIn has drawn a lot of information and kind of taken a lot of copycat techniques from the likes of Facebook. They have all kind of started with the B2C side of things, and it's kind of it's fed into B2B. So that's kind of one of the things that we believe will actually happen in the future. You know, your social media could actually become that central hub. And if you think about the model, maybe your website would actually sit alongside it rather than it being something that's on the outer perimeter. So that's number one in terms of a future prediction. It could actually become the heart of it. So another prediction for social media for the future is value-adding content will take the lead. Now, this is something that, you know, we already know. We've been preaching it for a very long time. You know, posting just for the sake of it will get ignored. I think, you know, 10 or so years ago, when kind of social media became a thing for commercial purposes, people were just putting stuff out there and they weren't really getting engagement. They were doing it just because they had to do it. What you need to think about is what is going to add value for your audience. So the fundamental part of that is just knowing what the pain points of your audience are going to be. And really, if you think about how many social media platforms that we're being exposed to and how many marketing messages we're being exposed to on a daily basis, you know, that really is, it needs to be something that adds value. There's so much more noise. Ways that you can do this: you can write a blog outlining your expertise, you could create an ebook, you could create an industry report, or you could create how-to videos. Now, all of those four are obviously big chunks of work. But if you've created these bits and pieces of information and spent the time doing that, you can actually pick out elements of that could turn into social media posts that you could just use for a prolonged period of time. You know, it could turn into maybe 10 posts if you've written a 1,000-word blog. And straight away, you've got content for, you know, how many weeks or months straight away in there. So value-adding content is paramount. You've always got to think about what value are you giving? Are you talking? Think about the pain points of the audience that you're speaking to. So that's that one. So the next one, we've already kind of talked about how-to videos just a second ago. So video will continue to take center stage. It's now predicted that by 2022, 80% of all content online will be video. Now, in the B2B arena, Again, I had a meeting just yesterday with a prospect, and they deal primarily with law firms. And, there was a big discussion about whether video should be a thing or not. Now, obviously, it depends on your audience. If they're dealing with law firms, obviously solicitors are very involved in a lot of reading in the environment they're in. They're not necessarily going to be playing videos in the office environment and whatnot. So certain use cases, it may not really be a thing. Obviously, this is a B2C statistic, but as we know, as we've mentioned, anything that happens in the business to consumer arena usually kind of feeds through to the B2B arena. But also, there's all kinds of different types of video content that you can create. So think about your audience and what kind of video content they're actually going to respond to. It's a thing. And creating video yourself, you don't need a massive production company these days. If you've got an iPhone, there's all kinds of apps you can use, and it really kind of helps just create a professional video and just get stuff out there. So yeah, that's number 3. So number 4 prediction, social media channels could double as shopping channels. So Facebook and Instagram have taken the lead with this, with their integrated shopping feature, and it allows you to purchase without leaving the app. So what implication is this going to have on websites in the future? Now, we see this in a really prominent scenario within, like I say, Facebook and Instagram, and very much in a B2C environment. Now, does that mean that the websites are going to become obsolete? I would say not. At this moment in time, from what we've seen, online purchasing via social media is more of an impulse purchase. It's not, if you want to do a bit of research on something, you're going to go to the website and probably work it on that basis. But if you're selling a product in the B2B arena, this is something to be to look out for. And I wouldn't be surprised if some point in the future LinkedIn actually brings this in as a feature at some point down the line. This may not be an immediate thing because obviously it is B2B. And obviously, well, when we're talking B2B, we're obviously talking very much about the service sector here, because that tends to be a lot of the kind of people that are in on the call, in on this webinar at the moment. But shopping channels, that's something that you really need. That is something that we believe is going to become a thing for the future in the B2B arena. So number 5, authenticity will be vital. So I think last year lockdown really proved, when we all went into lockdown, there became this sudden kind of empathy that everybody had towards each other, and it all came down to brands really needing to be trusted and be seen to be trusted. And if you're putting information out there that isn't really true to the personality of the people behind it, it's going to show. So brand trust is key, and it has to be true to your core values. And you really need to find your brand personality, and that's something that comes out of the people behind the business. And like I say, that's kind of the core values that come across. The third point here is post-user generated content. So I've talked about the values behind the people in the business, but obviously user-generated content is the customers that are posting things like reviews. That kind of thing speaks for itself. If they're saying good things, great. You want to kind of put that out there, and you want to be sharing that because it's what other people are saying about you. That is authenticity. That's about as authentic as it gets. And even if you're in a scenario where you're actually getting negative reviews of some kind, obviously you don't want to be posting that, but you want to be responding to that in a way, not just putting your head in the sand and hiding away from it. You want to be responding to it to show that you are a responsive brand and you're doing what you can do to actually fix the situation. You don't have to get into a big discussion on social media or on review platforms about what the challenge was. You can try and take it offline and have the discussion and fix the problem for your client. So authenticity is vital. So number 6, personalisation is key. So personalising your organic content is near impossible. So organic content is just the normal stuff that you post out and it's free of charge. The way the social media platforms make their money, most of their money, is from paid advertising. That's their revenue stream. With paid advertising, you can then, it allows you, because really all social media channels are, it's just one giant database. They've got information on every last bit of information that you've given them to do. Say on LinkedIn, your job title and your work history and your age and your gender to an extent. If you're running paid ads, now you can't personalize them to say, hello, Jag, or anything like that, but you can really talk to their very specific needs. If that's something that you actually want to learn more about, Danny's actually done a webinar recently on this, and taking a look at kind of paid advertising and kind of how to get started on it. And that's on our website on the blog page as a recording of it. So personalization, so running paid ads to really target your message into your target audience, is something that's going to really start to become a big thing in our opinion. So moving on to number 7, you need to reevaluate the metrics that are considered to be important. Now, likes, there's all these vanity metrics out there. You know, people historically would have looked at likes. How many likes has it had? And really, that's becoming a thing of the past now. You know, Instagram are one of the first to actually give the option now to actually remove likes from your from you know, the ability to see likes. You as the account owner can see them, but other people can't see them. And I think they've done that in response to the mental health awareness for, you know, young people. But really, what you need to be doing is actually focusing in on things that affect your bottom line. So if you think about if you're wanting to think about brand awareness, really what you want to focus on, if we move on to the next slide, you want to think about the sales funnel. If you want to create brand awareness, really what you want to look at, say, is your post reach. How many people has it reached? It isn't about how many people are liking it. It's how many people have become aware of your brand. And looking at that, you can see from that how much your audience is actually growing. If you look at kind of in the sales funnel, if you want to focus on engagement, customer engagement, you can have a look at how many people are actually commenting on your posts. That's really powerful, especially in the LinkedIn world. You know, people commenting on your posts is probably the most powerful thing, or you commenting on other people's posts to push your personal brand is the most powerful thing that you can do. If conversion is an objective, you want to focus on your conversion rate or your click-through rates. It's all about the bottom line. So what we know is going to happen, what we're seeing is a trend of people are just stopping focusing on the vanity metrics, and it's a case of looking at all of these other factors. Now, everything I've mentioned doesn't necessarily equate to return on investment. If you think of it like a thermometer, what you're doing is you're just slowly building these things up, like, you know, how many people are engaging and how many people are commenting and how much reach you're getting. Once you get to a certain point, that's obviously what's going to involve it becoming an inquiry, which then leads to the purchase. So think about the metrics that are considered to be important. So it's all about the data in this particular circumstance. So there's going to be a lot more focus on that moving forward in the future. So there are our 7 predictions of the key things that are going to opt for social media for the future. So what we're going to talk about now is why social media is crucial for business growth in 2021. So did you know that there are now 4.2 billion active users around the world, with each person spending on average 2 hours and 25 minutes a day on social media? So that's active users. Obviously before we talked about 1.5 billion new users. These are 4.2 billion active users across numerous accounts, of course, and that's what it's counting. Look at your own screen time. If you've got an iPhone or if you've got a smartphone, look at your own screen time and it'll give you an indication of how much you're using. I know there are times myself, because this is the industry we're in, I do sometimes spend that amount of time on social media. So how can social media help your brand is the question that we need to look at. So if we move on to the next slide, you can connect with your audience to form long-lasting relationships. You can increase your brand awareness. You can reach wider audiences. You can create and personalize content to increase customer loyalty and engagement, and you can learn about what your competition is doing. So there's so many ways that social media, the importance of it is really very much there in these key things that I've just highlighted. So let's go on to the next slide. So number 1, you can be omnipresent. Now, historically, you may not have been able to, you could only go through one channel. Before social media and digital existed, you could only be in, so many places at once. Studies have shown that you need to have been exposed to a brand at least 7 times before you decide to make a purchase. So basically, the average person has 8 social media accounts. So, if you think of all the platforms that are out there, there's a lot of platforms. So even with only a few accounts, you can be omnipresent. But the key here is obviously just thinking about your target audience. If your audience are on Instagram and on LinkedIn, LinkedIn, that's the only platforms you need to be on. And if you're posting at various times of day, you can just be present in numerous places all at the same time. And that's just with social media. You know, if you're talking about your website and PR and all these other areas that Solar 7 covers, you know, it allows you to be omnipresent. You've got more opportunity to be out there in front of people than you ever had before. So the next point, social media adds credibility to your brand. So a study has shown 75% of people using social media to gauge a brand before making a purchase. Now, obviously, we saw the statistic before from the poll of 62 people that I did. That was what, 50%? This is desk research that's been done. So basically, there's a lot of people using social media to do their research. A common thing we see is people saying, "Oh, we've put social media out there," a common thing we see is "Oh, we've done social media, and oh, it's not working for us." And the reason it's not working for them is because they're falling at the first hurdle. They're not really putting it out there in a very measured and structured format, and really knowing who their audience are, and doing all the things that we've just mentioned. So a nice little tip to do something like that is what we were referring to before as user-generated content. Show off your customer reviews. You know, if you get negative reviews, I mentioned this before, don't shy away from them. Respond appropriately. It'll show that you're engaging as a brand that doesn't hide from its problems. So it's all about credibility. You need to be kind of doing stuff that is true to your brand and something that's resonating with your audience, and just putting yourself out there on a regular basis. It isn't an overnight success, social media. You need to really work on building it on an ongoing basis. So moving on to the next point, it can help you to build your personal brand. Jeff Bezos said your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. So you can use your social media to talk about your expertise in your field, which will positively reflect on your brand. And people buy into people. You know, we talk about B2B and B2C, but really it should be H to H, human to human. You know, you might have a business brand, and then that's represented by an individual, a person, their personal brand, and then the customer, your B2B customer, will have a business brand, but that person will have their own brand. It's the people that connect with each other. So when you're building your personal brand, it's also important to be omnipresent, just like a company brand. So if you're, again, talking on numerous platforms, Twitter and Instagram and LinkedIn or whatever is relevant to your audience, it's all about building your personal brand. And this is where LinkedIn, this is something we always advise. Company pages are fine, but it's all about your personal presence in a B2B arena on your own LinkedIn profile. Okay, so moving on to the next point. It can help you to create relationships and build a community. So how does this benefit your business? It'll help you to build your brand credibility. Being active in groups and offering expertise to other members will help to position yourself as an industry leader. And if you create a solid relationship with your customers, they're more likely to stay loyal to your brand. So again, you know, you might be building relationships, you know, by meeting face to face or via Zoom or phone calls. But, you know, just being present and in front of your target audience is always a great way to build relationships, and commenting on their posts and them commenting on your posts. You know, it's all about that regularity of activity. That is fundamental, and it's something that most people see as a chore. They don't really look at it and say, oh, we don't really like social media, or we don't do social media. If you look at it as part of the role of kind of building the brand, if that's part of your role within the business, that is fundamental, and it's really, really, really powerful. It really is. So I'm going to pass it over to Danny now, and Danny's going to talk about each B2B social media platform and how they can be used.
Thank you, Jack. Just before I start as well, I just wanted to kind of allude from what you were just saying there, Jack. I think it's important to mention that a lot of what we said is social listening, and people might have heard of that before. The term is basically what we've described as being there for your customers and understanding their pain points before they've even expressed them to you. And social media is really important for that. And that's where these involvement in these groups and communities will put you ahead of your competitors if you are actively doing that. So yeah, we'll move forward then. So looking at each B2B social media platform and how they can be used. So of course, we're going to start off with LinkedIn, because why wouldn't we when we're using it? LinkedIn is the world's largest professional network across the internet. It was originally built as a recruiters platform, so of course it makes sense that it's there for networking, and it is a really useful tool in order to develop relationships, but also move on into leads as well. So it's ideal for businesses to use it to network and the brand presence, both as a company but also personally as well. So in all of these features, we are kind of platforms, we are doing a bit of a whistle-stop tour. There is so much more than the things that we are going to mention, but we have put together a blog that's on our website. And you can go on this, and that gives even more kind of detail into what all these features are. And of course, you can have a chat with us anytime as well. So we're just kind of covering the 3 key features of each platform that we think are really useful and that you need to know about as a business and be using. So Jag mentioned about data. LinkedIn's analytics are great for looking at your data, not only looking into the actual analytics of your content and how that's working, but also looking at your followers and the people, your audience, and how they are kind of relating with your content too. Things like when they're active, when they're online. So really useful, and it should be something that you're checking regularly. So make sure that you're doing that. Events, obviously we're hosting one right now, and the new functionality to go live in them, which obviously we're testing out for the first time today, but everybody has those issues when they're doing things for the first time round. So, and that kind of links into LinkedIn Live, again, what we're doing now. These are key functions that LinkedIn have said that the algorithm does prefer. So going live will be put forward in front, so it should help you expand your reach as a brand as well. So the more lives that you can do, the better. There's lots of different functions as well within the events tab, so you're able to actually kind of go in there. You can download people's contact information that have signed up for the events. Obviously that helps with creating email campaigns going forward, so using the whole Solar 7 model there to work together. Okay, next one. I suppose what we should have said as well, sorry, is I can see questions coming in on the right-hand side. I'm not ignoring them. We will go through the questions at the end, so we'll bring your comments up and discuss them. So we're not ignoring them. I just thought I'd make a point of that. Facebook. So Facebook is the longest standing social network. Charlotte and I yesterday were literally just having a conversation about how much it's changed since we used it. And we were chatting about the poke function. I don't know whether anybody remembers that, when you used to be able to poke someone. It's just like, yeah, there's obvious reasons for why that one's gone. But yeah, it just, it goes to show that they are developing and they are changing. What you really need to know about Facebook is that it does allow you to reach and engage with your audience without the spend. Obviously, there are masses of people there. You can obviously invest in paid ads, and we've mentioned the webinar that I did previously with Mike at Northern Affinity. That's there for people who want to have a look at how that might work for them. Facebook features that you do need to know about: the Ad Center setup. They have a whole business platform, so it's really useful in terms of kind of working through. And Facebook's quite good in learning and knowledge. It has like a blueprint center where you can kind of go in and you can learn a bit about how to do things as well. But it's really cool for kind of targeting and stuff like that. Facebook Shops, now this is becoming huge. We mentioned before, Jag went through about e-commerce and that being a big thing. Now Facebook's definitely leading the way, along with obviously Instagram, as it owns both. But what there's talk about doing is that Facebook's going to become more of a place where you can do the old QVC style shopping, where you can go live literally and have like your images of your products popping up, and be able to kind of sell your products online. So obviously more so for the B2C side of things, but just goes to show the route that it's going, and the way that social is kind of focusing now on how you can literally stay on the platform and buy something without going anywhere. And we've seen that shift definitely during the pandemic, where people were unable to go and try things on or visit the shop as they would normally do. And that's kind of what's pulled more people to social as well, because if you think about elderly relatives that didn't necessarily use the platform before, they've come onto Facebook to not only use it for shopping, but also to keep connected with family through the messenger service and the video service. So there's all sorts of things that have meant more people's eyeballs will literally see content across socials. So it's really important to think about that. We've mentioned about groups and communities, but Facebook is a massive hub for that. So, if you are using social media, Facebook for your group, for your business, then make sure that you have groups as well that you are actively involved in and doing things in there as well. This is because basically it makes it more kind of tailored to community, and it helps with the social listening that I mentioned before. If you've got a network of people that are genuinely interested in the service that you offer or the support that you can offer them, then it's a really good tool to use for that. One kind of example, when I worked in education, we had a group set up for teaching support where we would share any lesson plans or anything like that. So it becomes like a little knowledge kind of hub for people. But at the same time, obviously, you're kind of softly selling. So you're providing them with value, which is obviously something that Jag's already mentioned about content. So then we'll go on to Twitter. So Twitter is an amazing platform. It does require a lot of time. It's a microblogging platform, and it allows short form posts, so up to 280 characters. So it's very quick. The most successful users don't just tweet. There's so much more to the platform than just going on and tweeting. And to be honest, because it's so fast moving, you need to be tweeting a lot in a day for it to for you to be seen if that is all you're doing. There are additional functions coming out. They've just released Spaces, which is their audio version of Clubhouse. And this is I've used it. I love it. I think it's great. And it kind of allows you to literally have chats with your audience. So they were the first ones to kind of kickstart that. It was already going when Clubhouse came up, so they were really quick to react to that, which was great. So, and I know a lot of people within the social media industry are loving it too. So Twitter lists is something else that you can use as well, where you can kind of follow companies and you can add them, you can keep an eye on the content and be informed. And Twitter polls, so again, very similar to the LinkedIn polls, but useful for obviously gathering information from your customers about what they think and what they feel about your products, or just generally you can have a bit of fun with them as well. And then these then create more content for you to then repurpose and use in the future. So Instagram, so I love Instagram, and I honestly think B2B don't use it as well as they probably could. There are different ways to use each of these platforms, and we always, whenever working with anyone, will sit down and define a goal immediately. So never just jump into all of these. Actually decide what the reason is for using that platform. Instagram is a great one for showcasing behind the scenes, for showing people the real life behind your business. It's really useful for recruitment. So if you're trying to attract others, to showcase what the life is like at wherever. And it's very visual. So obviously nice imagery if you are developing products or, something that you can do. Even if you're providing services such as training, things like that, nice visuals of you delivering that session, things like that work. They add a human element, and that at the end of the day, even when we're talking B2B or B2C, it's still human to human. So we still need to show that element of person. So Instagram stories, we've seen this recently join on LinkedIn. I personally don't see it having much of a work. It doesn't seem to work on LinkedIn. that's my personal opinion. You can see as well that maybe LinkedIn are also thinking that as it's kind of moved down the news feed as well since it started. So could obviously see that difference. Whereas Instagram have had massive success with this, and there's actually been conversation about it turning into, when you go into Instagram, your story's been there before your thing, and you'll see that because it originally started with just 4 at the top, and now there's like more than 4 circles at the top. So so that may change. Reels is something that they've released within the last year or so, and these are basically you can create your own content on there. They're like little videos, like 30, 60 seconds. And you'll see a lot of it on there where it's, you know, adding music over the top and using a bit like TikTok, basically. It's their version of that. And influencer marketing is a big one as well that's coming through. And there's a lot of things happening with Instagram in terms of influencer marketing and how they are managing what their influencers are doing on there as well. So, which is really good to see, because obviously social can be scary, and we all know that, and I think we all agree with that. So it's good to see one of the big players actually taking a stance at that. So really good to see. YouTube, finally, there are other platforms that you may use. Pinterest is coming up there as well, so it's worth having a look at that. But these are the ones that we kind of use on a day-to-day basis. YouTube, so YouTube is a search engine as well. So obviously having your content on there is like another form of Google. So it's great to be present on there. A couple of features there. There's channel art, so that's like adapting your cover image, similar to what you do for LinkedIn or for Facebook at the top. It's like using that as a bit of a billboard advertising and making sure that that's personalised for your brand. And channel trailers is kind of like an opening video that you can use that's about your business. So useful functions there. Like I say, we have kind of just like run through all of these. So there is the blog there that's got more detail, but if you do want to know anything else, then feel free to give us a message or get in touch. So examples of companies that are doing it right. So we've done a bit of research, I should say Charlotte's done a bit of research for us and found these people. So we'll just run through them. Jupiter Construction, great example of a company doing LinkedIn right. So what are they doing? They're really strong with their employee advocacy. A lot of people get stuck in the content side of that they've just got to shout about what the company's doing all the time. Personally, like brand, you know, product, we're releasing this product. And they forget about what we've been saying earlier, the human element, who's behind the business, what's going on. They shout about their employees. And not only is that important in terms of obviously reaching out to showcase to people, to their audience, that these are the people, think about what that's doing for their employee as well, and their, like, you know, their feelings about working for that company. If they're recognized across social media, and they're mentioned in that, they're more likely to then, you know, comment on that or share that. And then, of course, that means that their networks are going to see it too, and their networks. So it's all about obviously extending that reach. But at the same time, it's nice to shout about somebody getting married or somebody, you know, having a baby or being awarded, passing an exam. Anything like that is really important. We always see that whenever we share content in regards to us going out, celebrating, or, you know, something's happened in the office, we always see that we get more engagement on those types of posts. And of course, why wouldn't you? It's personal. Posting images and videos of on-site progress. So again, quite imagery, showing this is what we're doing, this is where we're going. It's a nice kind of image to showcase. They are reposting their user-generated content and the customers' testimonials really well. So, you know, where they're getting these nice comments, they're actually getting them out there and reusing that, which is great. And they're using hashtags really well. Now, hashtags is one of my bugbears. Like, there are so many different rules with hashtags and things, but these guys are using it really well. So usually within LinkedIn, they say no more than 4 or 5, and usually 3 is the sweet spot. So, but making sure that they're relevant And always try to include them at the end rather than within the text, because if you are visually impaired or you have abilities, it can put people off being able to read it correctly when there's hashtags in, because obviously spaces and things like that. So just be mindful of that. Instagram, Priestley Construction is a great example of doing Instagram right. As you can see, very visual, which is what we mentioned earlier. They use time-lapse videos to showcase the work, which obviously we know, taking a long video, people don't have much time nowadays. We're all short of time. We all wish we had another day in the week, I reckon. So, the fact that they're doing that and showcasing that is great to just kind of see that and see that moving forward. They do share curated industry content. So what we mean by curated is that someone else has written it and then they're sharing it. The important thing to do here is that when you are sharing it, is to explain why you're sharing that. So many people fall for just clicking share and letting it go, and the algorithm doesn't enjoy that at all. What you need to do is, if you do share something or you post that content, you include their handle, so you give them credit for actually where you've received it from. You will extend their reach then, and see their network will see it too. But also just explain, sharing this because of X, Y, Z. They're using highlights. So by highlights, what we mean under Instagram, if you know it, is the little circle sections that you can kind of put your favorite bits in, and you can change these and have little subsections that you can then reuse that content at a later date for throwbacks or, product launches to remember when we did this, or, testimonials can all go in somewhere. So every now and again, you can share one of those. So you've always just got a bit of evergreen content in those. Using Reels as well. So what we mentioned earlier about the constructed kind of TikTok style videos, which is great. Howard Civil Engineering is a great example of Twitter. They're demonstrating corporate social responsibility with the fundraising that they're doing. They are showing behind the scenes really well. And they're talking about the work with women in construction as well. So that's a big thing, obviously, at the moment. So they're pushing a lot of that, which you can see over here. And they're also tagging relevant accounts in posts to help further reach. So wherever you can do this, that's great, pushing that. The one thing that I would say, some of the social media accounts, the algorithms will, if you are constantly just posting a list, like tagging a list of people because you want them to comment, the algorithm will downgrade you for that. If these people are being tagged, it's because you know that they will comment, or that they'll like, or that they'll do something to interact with that post. If it's a case of you just punching the numbers because you think, you're in one of these groups or whatever, and you just tag 12 people in to comment, the algorithm no longer rewards for that. So just be mindful of it. Okay. So how to future-proof your digital marketing strategy. So I feel like we could probably go on and on and on with this one, Jag, to be honest, but keep it short and sweet. So we've mentioned quite a few of these bits and pieces already throughout the live, but Jag mentioned about data. It is so essential that you use it. It will give you a better understanding of who your audience are. If you look at things like your Google Analytics, they'll tell you times and times of day, things like that. There's so much insight into when your audience are visiting your website. So think, if they're online visiting your website at that time, it's likely they're going to be on their social media at that time too. So it's a good kind of way to reflect and use that knowledge then for when you're planning your social media's organic content. They help you to understand the keywords that your audience is searching for when they find you. So you can look into all of that detail within your analytics. Top tip, the social media platforms you use can give you access to plenty of insights, including information about your audience. So we have covered that a little bit, but it is really worthwhile. People, like Jag said, we get it quite a lot where people think they're doing social media, but they're not really doing social media. And they've got a tick in the box that, yeah, we're on the platforms. being on the platforms is not enough. We always say, and I get so annoyed with myself for saying this all the time, that the clue is in the name. Social media, you need to be social. So being present isn't just enough. You can't just be present, you have to be doing stuff too. Create value-adding content. So we've already kind of covered this, but a study by Microsoft concluded that the human attention span has dropped to 8 seconds, meaning that it's now more difficult than ever for brands to stand out through the noise. One thing that I've recently found out is LinkedIn have now got 2 algorithms, one based on the desktop and one based on mobile, and they both look at different content. So depending on which device you're using, if you're on your mobile, the algorithm prefers video. If you're on the device, it prefers things like long form, like articles and things that you will potentially have more time to spend on. So that's something obviously to be mindful of if you look at your audience analytics and they're using mobile device more than desktop. And you can see things like that in your analytics. The starting point for creating valuable, so Jag's covered this slightly at the beginning, how-to guides, webinars to educate, like what we're doing, panel discussions with an expert in your field, they're really, really useful. Thought leadership blog posts, reactive content that discusses what's new in the industry. So again, that's like the curated stuff that we mentioned before. And of course, user-generated content. Monitor what your competitors are doing. So, I mean, be honest, how many of you are actually taking time to sit down and look at what they're doing? When was the last time that you went on to your competitors' social media and just checked the kind of content that they were using? You know, think about that and make sure that going forward, that's something that you do on a regular basis. We recommend listing at least 3 of the competitors and then listing at least 3 benchmark companies of a similar size that don't compete with you. So 3, you know, that are doing things well that you see and then working towards that. You then need to kind of go on social media, have a look at the profiles. For each one, assess the following and look at the number of followers and likes, number of posts per day, shares per post, comments, replies, hashtags, what they're using and the type of content. It'll just give you a really good idea of, you know, whether you're doing things right, whether there's anything that you can steal from them slightly, you know, not that we say go out and steal everybody's content, but everybody's repurposing everybody's stuff at the end of the day. So, you know, having a look and seeing what they're doing. If they're releasing webinars on a monthly basis, then maybe that's something that you want to consider doing as well. So it's good to kind of use that. Review and measure. So you want to make sure that you're looking out for the number of inquiries, number of proposals, quotes written, the total value of quotes, proposals sent out, number of sales and value of each sale. So be mindful of always reviewing and measuring. It's obviously that step that we mentioned in Solar 7. You know, you do all this work, but if you don't actually review if it's working, you don't actually take a step back and see, assess what is and what isn't, then you're just stagnant and it's just going to keep going. And that happens a lot with paid ads. People will set them up, a company will go, yeah, we're doing ads. Well, when was the last time you looked at them? When I set them up. Great. Go outside and throw some dollars down the drain or whatever, you know. I don't know why I said dollars, they're not American, but anyway, yeah, you know, you might as well, because actually you probably, if you're not assessing that data and you're not, you know, amending it, then it's pointless. Okay, so tools that we recommend for improving your digital marketing strategy. So I mentioned a couple of things throughout in terms of things to do, but we're going to give you some ideas of some tools that you can use that will help with these. So Canva is amazing for creating content. It's like, it's basically a really easy to use Adobe. You know, you can create anything in there now, and there are also opportunities to link Canva to your social media calendar, so you can post straight to social from Canva now. There's things like in there you can create GIFs. There's all sorts. You can just do so much. It's amazing. Google Analytics, I've mentioned that already. Great for looking at your audience, looking at devices that they use, and really getting to understand who is visiting your website, what they're doing on your website, and how you can then make that data relevant to your social media. Facebook Insights is another one. They've just kind of changed how that looks, and it's now got its own kind of area, and it looks like it's great. I mean, Facebook is a pain sometimes, but when it actually gets things right, it really gets them right. So having a look at that, and that just gives you so much information on what people are doing, your followers, you know, what they're reacting to. Rival IQ. We love Rival IQ. There is a free function where you can actually put competitors' information in, and it gives you all of that data that we mentioned on the competitor slide about number of followers, how often they're posting, things like that. It is only a 2-week snapshot, so it's a fortnight worth of their content, but at least it gives you some idea of what they're doing. And then we've also created a downloadable tool for you as well, which will pop in the links in the chat for you, but also we'll put them all of these links that we've mentioned, we'll get into the event as well for you. So you should now know our future predictions on how social media will change, why social media is crucial for business growth, each B2B social media platform and how it can be used, how to future-proof your digital marketing strategy, and some useful tools to strengthen it. Jag, can I hand back over to you now? My throat's going.
Thank you, Danny. So that wraps up everything that we were going to go through today. So we're going to post a link in the comments for a short survey. It'll only take you literally 10 to 15 seconds to fill it out. So if you could fill that out straight afterwards, that would be very much appreciated. It's the kind of thing that helps us really strengthen what we're doing for delivering future webinars. And then also we've created a free downloadable social media best practice guide, which we're also going to post a link for as well. So from this, you can just download. It gives an outline of the information that Danny specifically went through, and it gives you a little bit more information around each area of the kind of things that you want to do. It's absolutely free. You can download it, and it's there for you to use. So please do. That's in the comments as well. So please do download that. So, any questions, folks? We've had a few comments. One of the questions that Sarah has asked.
This one?
Yes, Danny, over to you.
There are so many, Sarah, to be honest. It's hard to pick one. All of the social media scheduling tools will pretty much offer a social listening tool. In terms of how you could do it for free, you can use Google. Google has Google Alerts, so you can set up with that. And then also just in terms of using each platform to do general searches yourself as well, so you can kind of tick it off that way. But yeah, I mean, Hootsuite has an amazing one. Brandwatch is a really good one to use as well. So there's so many out there. It's hard to recommend which one, but we tend to try and do it organically ourselves, just to save a bit of money, because some of them are very expensive. Hopefully that's answered that.
Michael's commented about Canva, saying even I can use Canva and I'm visually useless. Great tool, especially with some And yeah, I have to agree. I was a bit of a Canva snob because obviously we use all the Adobe suite for all our design work. But actually, this presentation has been put together. And Danny, yes, you were right. You brought it to the table.
I did. I actually did my wedding invites on Canva. That's how cool it is. There you go.
We've got another question from Sarah as well.
Sorry, Charlotte.
We've got another question from Sarah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a way to get the depth analytics for personal posts? Good question. I don't believe there is.
Well, what you can do, if you're talking about Google Analytics, one of the things that I've done a previous webinar is a LinkedIn landing page. So if you're measuring information in your analytics coming in to a dedicated page, you can actually see the source of referral from specific platforms. If you're talking about specifically Google Analytics, yes, you can see that. You can also see within your LinkedIn specifically how many people are viewing your profile. You have to go into premium to unlock that information a little bit more. But yeah, on your person, it is limited. It's when you upgrade to the premium account, and that's the kind of thing that will give you a bit more information on the analytics for your personal posts.
I think Mike made a good point earlier as well, which I'll just stick up regarding the not all benefits can be measured by obvious ROI. You know, Instagram definitely is a bit rubbish for that, I think. But you know, I think this is where sales teams and marketing struggle a bit sometimes to work together. I think, you know, to find out where that inquiry is actually from, and that's one thing that, I mean, don't get me started on that, but that's one thing that is really difficult to prove ROI in social media, because a lot of the time what they'll do is they'll go to your social media, they'll do all the searching, and then they'll leave, and then a couple of days later they'll go to the website. And of course, then when they come in as a lead, they'll say, "Well, I found you on Google." It's like, "No, you didn't."
It all works. It's an ecosystem that all works together, and that's the importance of having all these different social media.
That's Solar 7.
Solar 7, yeah, being omnipresent. So yeah. Thank you very much, folks. If you want to contact Danny or myself, you can see our LinkedIn QR codes there, or you can follow us on any of our social media profiles. So yeah, thank you very much, guys, for coming along, and I hope you found that useful. Like I say, if you could fill in the survey, that would be really appreciated. And yeah, please do download the Social Media Best Practice Guide. It's something that's there for you to use, and hopefully you'll get some value from it.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.